you will find that construction was begun somewhere around the idea of 10,500 BC.
What was its purpose?
The idea of many of those things is to act as capacitors and energy generators for the idea of allowing people to get into a certain state that allows them to explore and express more of themselves.
Was life force energy ever used?
Life force energy exists in all of you. So of course it was used. Is that the way you meant that?
Yeah.
How can you not use life force energy?
It's everywhere, yeah. Let me see.
Are you
also
asking if life force energy was amplified by the structure?
Yes.
Yes.
How so? Is it
By the proportions.
the material, the minerals?
The material to some degree, but mostly the proportions. Because many of these ideas of temples and structures on your planet are built to what you call golden mean proportions. And that is the mathematical structure of how physical reality lays itself out. So when you build things with those kinds of proportions, you will then cause resonance to happen in certain ways that will build the energy up and amplify it to the purpose that the structure has been built for.
Was the whole temple made out of sea minerals? Sandstone?
Not completely, but mostly, yes.
Okay.
But again, it will depend upon what's available in the area. Adjustments may be made for the kind of material that needs to be used.
Was it ever used for metaphysical restoration?
What are you defining as metaphysical restoration?
Healing.
Yes.
Was it also used to activate the pineal gland?
Yes. In fact, activating the pineal gland or aligning the pineal gland activation is one of the strongest things that a lot of such temples were used for on your planet in your history. Because it was understood that pineal gland activation at certain frequencies allows you to actually commune with other dimensions very clearly.
So you're saying people that were depressed, having cancer, they would go to these temples and be cured from...
Yes, they would cure themselves.
I see.
By allowing themselves to align with the vibration that was amplified in that temple. Now, sometimes the idea of the priests would allow themselves to also give off that frequency to create a resonance atmosphere, a resonance bubble, that if the person to be healed then allowed themselves to match that frequency, then they would heal themselves, yes. They would align themselves.
You mentioned before that the temple was made by the Khmer civilization, am I correct?
Yes, but I said that you don't really understand exactly what the Khmer civilization was.
Is Khmer pronounced today as Khmer in the Cambodian language?
You can ask a Cambodian.
Okay. You also mentioned that people were trained to raise their vibration.
As you are training yourselves right now.
To perceive architecture's proportions and dynamics. How so?
In a variety of ways. Do you have an interest in the idea of proportions and the resonant dynamics that attend those ideas of proportion?
Like the type of vibrational atmosphere that they had. Can you describe how it was?
It cannot really be described. It must be experienced. So if you will build a chamber out of whatever materials you are attracted to in the appropriate proportions that are representative of those golden means, you will have the experience yourself of what those vibrational resonances are like.
Okay.
If that is exciting to you.
Were the Khmer civilization had any connections to Atlantis or Sirius?
Both, to some degree.
Okay.
But also to what you would call Lemuria in ancient times. Or really, in their own language, Mu.
Mu.
Yes, Mu. Lemuria is a term that comes later in your history. It's not what they called themselves. They called themselves Mu.
I see. Were the Khmer civilization survivors of Atlantis?
There was some influx, but not as much. The idea, really, of the Atlantean spread was mostly to what you know as the North and South and Central Americas, and also to the idea of the Northern Africa, Mediterranean, and European theater. Eventually, some of the influence made its way across the Asian continents, but more it is the idea of a Muan connection. Does that help you?
Yes.
All right. Anything else?
Yes. I recently showed you the cube
Yes.
before. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Well, you said it had connections to Sirius.
Yes.
I do practice these seashells
Yes.
on other people, and recently I had a person seeing a blue star.
Yes. Well,
Wait.
that's the vibrational color of Sirius,
I see.
the blue-white star.
He was also seeing an image of a lizard. Could you tell me more on that?
The idea is not exactly what you would call a lizard. There is a physical species that inhabits that system along with the non-physical consciousness that also is connected to that system. The physical species that inhabits that system that has visited your Earth in the past is a type of amphibious being, a little bit more closely resembling the idea of a salamander more than a lizard, but not exactly that either. So they had a slight interpretive difference in their perception of the being, but they were somewhat close. But it's not the idea of the reptilians that people are talking about on your planet.
I see. He also saw a reptoid. Could you?
No, I will not comment on that.
Okay. Also, there was other people, including myself, seeing formulas from when using the cube.
All right. So how do you wish to use that information? How do you wish to apply it in your physical reality?
Could you tell me more on these formulas?
No. You have to be the one to discover these things. This is your process. I'm not going to open your presence for you.
Are those
You
formulas?
must follow your excitement and your imagination and see where it leads. You must make your discoveries. It's your process.
I see.
We have already given you some information regarding the idea of clues that lead to resonant chambers that are certain proportions based on the idea of certain golden proportions. That's our clue. That's what we're allowed to give you. You must move forward and take that to whatever degree your imagination desires to discover the rest of the information regarding these formulas.